Hi artists, we've got a new master to learn about this month. His name was Moritz Cornelius Escher, but he is more commonly known as M.C. Escher. You may have heard of him. And just like Van Gogh and Mondrian, Escher was also Dutch. So he was born in this home in the Netherlands in 1898. As a child, he went by the nickname Mauk, M-A-U-K, and he struggled in school and also with his health. When he went to university, he planned to study architecture, but he had a professor, shown here, Samuel Jesurin de Makita, who steered him into drawing and printmaking because he saw Escher's talent. So Escher learned the art of wood and linoleum cuts. This is an early linoleum cut of his father. And here is another piece called The Wild West. It was done by woodcut, and we will talk about that process shortly. Escher was interested in the mathematical side of art and patterns. He is famous for saying that he was not actually an artist and not very good at drawing, but actually a mathematician. So here's a piece created with 8 heads that repeat. So look closely and see if you can find all 8. So here is a pretty prominent one, the one with the top hat, and a woman. There's 2, but then you can see some smaller heads, maybe upside down, all nestled in between, kind of like a puzzle. Okay, so let's talk about the process of making a woodcut print. So most of Escher's art was done this way. So first the artist draws their sketch onto the piece of wood. And next the artist carefully carves around the drawing so that the areas not to be inked are chiseled away. You can see this process probably takes a lot of time. So here's what the wood looks like after it has been carved. Next, the artist applies ink to the piece of wood. You can see them rolling it on with a paint roller. And finally, a piece of paper is put on top of the woodcut, and then it's fed through a machine that presses it together firmly. So, watch that one more time. Here is the final product. So on the left side, you have the print, and here you have the original woodcut with the ink on it. Okay, so Escher also made many lithographs and sketches. Here's a self-portrait he made in 1929. And after university, Escher traveled all over Italy, making many landscapes of the areas he visited. So here are a few examples of the Italian countryside. When he was in Italy, he met Jetta Umaker, and they married in a small ceremony. So here's a picture of their wedding day. After marrying, Escher became more interested in drawing impossible pictures, so scenes that couldn't exist in real life. So here's a picture of a mirror that reflects something different than what is actually should be reflected. So you have a mirror in a room, but the reflection is actually a street in an alleyway. Okay? He also loved working with mirrored spheres and became a master at sketching their reflections. So you can see how well he was able to capture the curve of that reflection. It's a sketch of him holding a mirrored sphere and then his reflection in it. It's a pretty cool piece. Okay, so here is one of his impossible pieces. So you see the shelf is holding books, okay, playing cards, and there's a pipe. But if you kind of look closely, you also see that this image is also part of the street. So instead of just being on the windowsill, you also see that somehow it is part of the street that it's looking out into. Here's another cool impossible image. These were a little bit later, but you can see this ascending and descending staircase. So you can see how there are people walking up the staircase and there are people walking down the staircase, and it never ends. So it's a pretty cool impossible picture. And then this one is also cool. There are staircases where there are people ascending and descending on the same staircase. There are different planes and different matters of gravity throughout. So pretty interesting. Okay, so Escher and his wife had children while in Italy, but while they were living there, Mussolini came to power and fascism, unfortunately, was on the rise. And so they decided to get the heck out of there. And Escher worked a deal out with a boating company in exchange for him drawing pictures that the boating company could use for their advertisements. They gave him and his family free passage to Spain. Okay, so while in Spain, Escher visited the Alhambra in Granada. So this is an ancient palace and fortress, also a citadel, that has really intricate architecture and tile work. So Escher spent a lot of time sketching the tile work in the Alhambra. Here's an example. Here's another example of the tile work. These tiles inspired his art for the remainder of his life. Okay, so here's a picture that he did where you can see almost a tile-like nature with these birds. You can see black ones and white ones, and then they fade down slowly to the field below into these patches of crops. So you can see the beginning of the patterns and the tessellations happening. Okay, so let's talk about patterns and tessellations. So a pattern is a shape, a color, or a line that repeats. So here are some different examples of shapes and lines repeating. Easy enough. And a tessellation is just a pattern of shapes that do not have gaps or overlapping. So they fit together kind of like puzzle pieces. They're the same shape that just lay next to each other without any gaps or overlap. So Escher made countless pieces consisting of tessellations, and a few are shown here. So you have lizards, and you have fish, and you have kind of birdfish up here, and you can see that the shapes don't overlap and they all fit together perfectly like puzzle pieces. That's a tessellation. Okay, so here's a really fun print. So in the middle you have 2D tessellations of these lizards, reptiles, this one's called. And as you look to the right, you see that the reptiles emerge 3D out of the print. They circle around and then they return back to the 2D print and become 2D into the tessellation again. Escher's art is pretty fun just to look at. Okay, so it's time for our quiz. Let's see how much you learned. As a young adult, which country did Escher move to and create landscapes? Was it A, India, B, Iceland, or C, Italy? All right, you were correct. It was C, Italy. Question number 2. Where was Escher inspired by Moorish tile work? Was it A, the Alhambra, B, the Tower of London, or C, the Great Wall of China? What do you think? Bingo, you've got it. It was A, the Alhambra in Spain. And number 3, what is a tessellation? This is important. Was it A, Tesla's latest car model, B, a configuration of stars, or C, a repeating pattern of shapes without gaps or overlap? You're correct. It is C, a repeating pattern of shapes without gaps or overlap. Okay, friends, that was a quick summary of M.C. Escher and his artwork. I am so excited to see you soon, and we are going to work together on making our own tessellation projects. Bye.